What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I am talking about a Shudder original release that just came out on the Shudder channel that I was pretty excited about. Seeing the trailer looked pretty interesting. Seeing the production team behind it has done things like Z and Stillborn and a whole bunch of really good Shudder movies that I've enjoyed over the years that have been sitting in that 6 to 7 out of 10 range. So I go, oh, pretty good production team. I trust Shudder originals pretty much. So I was excited to see what was going to happen when Influencer came out, 2023's Influencer, and that's the one I'm discussing for you guys today. This movie was written by Tesh Gudikanda, and I'm sure I butchered that. I apologize. Also written by Curtis David Harder, directed by Curtis David Harder as well, who you guys will know he has 2 other feature films, but he also did Spiral, which is another Shudder original. It's a very environmental, physical location style film that I enjoyed. And starring Emily Tennant as Madison, who's known for a lot of like TV stuff, done a ton of TV work. A lot of the Marvel stuff, the CW stuff. She's everywhere. Emily Tennant as Madison, Cassandra Nod as CW, and Rory J. Saper as Ryan. This movie essentially is the story of a social media influencer who needs to escape her kind of hectic life. So she goes to visit Thailand and see all these exotic locations to post about it for her social media and expand her brand and make herself look like she's having the time of her life. When she comes across another stranger who kind of brings her experience to life and helps her to experience more of Thailand, but then finds out there are some deadly consequences to the people around you that you can trust. That is what I can say. This will be a non-spoiler because it just came out like 3 days ago. So I'm not going to spoil this, but I will discuss it in detail as best I can without spoiling it. And so right away, I want to put the comparison to like the classic kind of girlfriendship danger movies like Single White Female. Crush was one that I thought of. The Roommate was one that I thought of. It definitely has that bonding can be dangerous thing where you find the new best friend in your life who you instantly click with, and the friendship kind of feels too good to be true, and you're not kind of sure who to trust or what the motivation is. You know, you bond with somebody really quickly, and it's that really latch on instant friendship, but it kind of feels forced and it kind of feels toxic, and it's too good to be true, and it usually is. And that's one of the central themes that is used in Influencer. Number one of the things that stood out to me immediately that I loved is the relatability of this. So when I say Single White Female, it is in that toxic crush, friendship gone bad, intensity gone wrong kind of genre of movies that I always enjoy. They're kind of formulaic and they're kind of basic, and we've seen the story done before. So this story is not super, super inventive or original. It's not going to reinvent the wheel, but the relatability of it, they modernized it in such a way that it surrounds social media presence. It surrounds kind of the price of fame, right? And kind of what you'll do to get your brand expanded and get your likeness out there to the world. It very much is that Instagram model influencer kind of thing, which I think this is the first time that I've seen it done this way. I like the modern updates to it. It feels relatable. It feels real. It feels like a satire of modern day, but it feels like it's handled maturely. I feel like there's definitely a bit of what's the word I'm searching for? There's a bit of like environmental PSA. It definitely has some like world relation social commentary, I guess I want to say. But it's done in a way that's not just spoofy. It's spoofing the influencers, but it's doing it in such a way that feels like this is what actually happens and could happen when you go to a different locale. So it's the danger of traveling kind of thing. You drop off the face of the earth and it's like, who would notice if you wound up being gone? Which I really enjoy that as a horror aspect. That's a very good natural tension thing. Something else that stood out as a major positive here, just all the visuals. I have 3 different positives here. Lighting positive, camera positive, location positive. All of these things are done so well. The lighting in this movie, everything just looks so pretty. The color correction and the lighting, everything looks sharp and crisp and just pretty to look at. Whether they're indoors, outdoors, you've got the beach, you've got the forest. All this vacation locale makes you feel wonderful, where it again mixes 2 of the things that I love the most in locations for horror movies. open world, big wide spaces with a lot of pretty things to look at, but also the feeling of isolation. There are isolated big buildings and hotels. There is an isolated beach involved here. You're in these big, pretty places that make your film look beautiful, but also give you a sense of, oh wow, the character's kind of on their own here to fend for themselves. And that makes for a really good horror movie. They captured both in equal measure here, and I like that. The camera was just done really well. There wasn't a ton of like inventive shots here. There wasn't anything that was super crazy or original that I hadn't seen, but everything is pretty. The static shots are nice. The follow shots that go on are very well in focus. They do a nice job capturing all the different light. They have a lot of lit scenes that are not blown out, that are just well colored and blend in nicely. I just like the technical aspects, the post-production. Everything was shot carefully, and the post-production was just colored so beautifully. So props to the camera and props to the editing team here. I love the way this was edited. Location, man, again, that's just one of the biggest positives here. They chose, I don't know if this was actually shot in Thailand or not. There are moments that give you kind of the Thailand feel. When two of the characters are on their bike riding around, you get these like street fairs and all these people and just like the high energy and like all the different stuff with like the street fair stuff. It's very creative and it's very interactive, and it kind of gives you the sense they might potentially be in Thailand for this shoot. Then we have pacing. This movie is, I think it's like an hour and 32 minutes total, so you're looking at about an hour 29 or an hour 30 with credits, which is really the sweet spot. I love a nice hour and a half movie, and this thing doesn't overstay its welcome. Considering that we know what it's going to kind of be. It's going to be the single white female thing. Once the plot is revealed, it kind of, you don't want it to overstay its welcome. Something like this going an hour and 50 or 2 hours, I think would be a little too much because the plot is a little basic once you realize where it's going. So they do a nice job of taking you there, but they do a couple things in the plot to subvert exactly where it's going. So the pacing in this is really, really good. The first 20 minutes, they spend with the characters kind of getting to know them. They do flesh out these characters, and they do make them distinctively different. In the facial expressions of Madison's character, you get kind of where she is. When she's in front of the camera doing the influencer thing, she's smiling, she's posing, she's tilting the head, she's hand on the hips, she's doing all the poses, and the second the camera goes off, it's that sad face. It's that, oh, my life is a lot harder than I want you guys to see. This is not as glamorous as I'm trying to make it look. And she sells that with her face very, very nicely. The other character, Cassandra Nod, has a birthmark on her face that is very pronounced under her eye. And I thought it was done on purpose to give you some tells and some plot points later in the film. But it's an actual birthmark. She was born with it. And I read something where when she was a child, she begged them to take it off, and her parents wouldn't take it off as a kid. And now she wants to keep it. She is somebody that is identified with it, and she likes the look, and she likes being separated. So just kudos to her for having something that would make you stand out as a child, and then growing to love it and love herself. I love finding love for your self-image and being able to use something that can be perceived as different to your advantage. She got this character probably in part because of that. She's also very good with facial expressions, and she's a very good actress. And she uses that birthmark to her advantage, and I really enjoy that empowerment and that part of her story that differentiates her. So kudos to Cassandra for that self-love. I applaud that very much on this channel. They also spend some time telling you how Madison's character, Emily Tennant, is kind of on this island by herself. She talks about some bit of her home life, how she's kind of a loner, how her relationship with her boyfriend, Ryan, has kind of played out and why things are negative in her life right now. So it makes sense that she would latch on to Cassandra Nod's character, CW, to need some excitement and need to see Thailand as a whole and bring her vacation to life when she's in a down place. So they've made everything make sense in a character perspective there. And in some of these moments, when you go, okay, this is so-and-so's story, now there's a perspective shift, and the main character kind of shifts half an hour or so into the story, and all of a sudden you see these belated title credits and you go, oh, the movie's kind of just starting, but this major thing has already happened. What are they going to do to fill out this next hour? They're showing us these title credits pretty late, and now I don't know where the movie's going. And then it kind of goes in a different direction. So while this, again, the story is beat for beat, a lot of the stories we've seen before, but they do a good job in shifting the character narrative and shifting the motivations in such a way that makes you go, I wonder how they're going to cover this. And they do kind of cover it in a bit of a different way. So while it's not super original, they do some things with the narrative and kind of the intentions of the characters to make it different. So that's really cool for me. Now on to a few negatives. One of the things I put down 2 major negatives here. One is character likability. For the fact that we do spend a lot of time with these characters, especially the first 20 minutes, establishing who these characters and the relationships are, while they're layered and they give you reasons for their existence, which I like, they aren't very likable as people until a different point in the movie. You get to know Madison and you see layers to her, but you see a lot of what she presents to you is the fakeness, the social media aspects, the presence online. And you kind of go, oh, well, I understand she's using this as like a defense mechanism to hide how sad she is in her real life. And that's a good social commentary talking point. But I don't really like her early in the film. You grow to feel bad for her for different reasons later. But early in the film, you go, I don't know if this can be the main character that I'm cheering for, because she is kind of flippant and kind of obnoxious in certain ways and kind of fake in certain ways. And I don't really like that about her. CW has this really fun character arc where she's just a badass who kind of takes life in her own hands, which is cool, but then some of her motivations and then the way she handles herself is very unlikable about a quarter or so of the way through this film. And you go, oh, well, I like her character traits, but I don't like the way she lives her life. I can't agree with her decisions here. And then Ryan, who's the boyfriend of Madison, you find out later that you kind of like him because you feel bad for him for some stuff. But early on, in the way that he interacts with Madison, you kind of see some toxicity and some gaslighting and some negative traits in him as well. And even later on, with certain things that happen to his character, he feels kind of flippant and kind of just like, oh, this kind of happens. He doesn't feel like he holds a lot of the stakes, at least halfway through the film. And you go, I don't really know if I like any of it, considering this is basically a 3-character movie. I don't like a lot of these characters. And yes, they are layered, and yes, there are reasons to understand why they do what they do, and yes, there are parts of them you do grow to feel sorry for, but getting there is like, oh, this is a pretty well-told story, and it's pretty fun to watch, but I don't know who to cheer for because I don't like the heart and soul, or at least what is portrayed as the heart and soul of these characters that they're giving us. So that's kind of a negative. And then the ending. Again, not going to spoil anything, but the ending of this movie, it just feels very quick. It feels like they spend a lot of time building up to certain things, and they go, oh, what are they going to do now? Okay, they're going to bring this character in and kind of make this make sense. Oh, that didn't end the way I thought it was going to end. What are they going to do now? And they go to this next place, and then by the end, you're like, oh, this character doing this doesn't really make sense, and oh wow, they really wrapped that up very quickly. It feels like they were like, we need an ending. We need something to satisfy the audience in some way. Let's go ahead and rush this last scene in and get this thing done in 5 minutes. I feel like this probably has different endings and probably ended differently in the film festivals, and it was either unsatisfying in the festivals or the producers didn't like it or whatever. So they went back and tacked on this little 5-minute scene that quickly ties everything up in a neat little bow that feels too coincidental and kind of makes me question one of the characters' motivations and one of the characters' instincts. I don't really trust the ending, so to speak. But I don't think it hurts the movie. I think this is a basic, fun little movie that's meant to be a cat and mouse kind of single white female, the roommate kind of innocent person meets psycho and who's going to survive and how are they going to get out of it kind of movie. So the ending I don't think ruins anything, but it just feels a little too coincidental and a little too like, yeah, that really probably shouldn't happen in either character's case toward the end of this film. So those are a couple little negatives. Overall, again, I just had a fun time watching this. It's physically and visually very pretty. It's a beautiful location. It's shot really nicely. The acting is good. I really enjoyed the main actors. Even if I didn't love and relate to the characters, I understood why they existed. Their motivations were all clear and intentional. Their intents were all obvious to the viewers. And I really enjoyed the way it was done overall. This is not going to be super complicated. There are some moments that are convoluted. There are some things that make you kind of wonder why they chose them. But overall, it's just a fun, turn your brain off, watch in the background kind of movie. So overall, I'm going to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's got potential to wind up on the lower end, maybe in the 8, 9, 10 range. for best horror films of 2023 for me. It's been kind of a slow year, I'm not going to lie. We're about halfway through the year now as we start to get into June, and there's not been anything really clearly like, wow, this has been amazing. So far, I'd put this somewhere either in my 8, 9, 10 range or honorable mentions, 11 through 15 somewhere in my 2023 horror. So this could wind up maybe in the bottom half at the end of the year. But I enjoyed Influencer overall, and I like this production team. And I want to see what else Curtis David Harder does as a director for the Shudder stuff. And I want to see more of what this production team puts out. So 6.5 out of 10. If you liked it, please tell me. If you've seen it so far, give me your opinions down below. If you want to see spoilers for this movie, tell me down below as well. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video if you like these horror movie deep dives. And check out my other kind of issues, editions, episodes, whatever, of the Drive-In, where I do other movies like this. And if you've got any other things from Shudder or in theaters that you'd like me to review horror-wise, tell me in the comments below as well. Take care, guys, and I will see you soon.